Good afternoon and welcome to our first webinar of 2022. So we're going to be, our goal is to do things differently this year. Last year we had about 6 of these. This year we're going to try to double that. Our goal is to have 12, one every month on the third Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. And the goal is to bring out some nice tips that will help you, whether it's in your business or even personal life, to better secure your digital assets, secure yourself, and secure the business. So what do we have in store for this month? Well, this month we have an opportunity to talk about email security. So let me just start by sharing my screen. Here, hopefully everyone can see that there. So let's get started. So you think about email security. Why is that so important for us? Well, just thinking about some of the stories that people hear. Maybe you're even tired of hearing some of the things that's in the news. There's stories of small, medium, enterprise companies, and there's breaches of all sorts. And so, this is why we decided to make email the first in this series, is because most people are duped by means of email. Breaches happen many times because of emails. Ransomware happens many times because of email. Someone was fooled by the email. By the CEO, someone pretended to be them, and they extorted money from them. Or someone's password was gained. Many times it's credential access. And so many of these breaches happen as a result of email. And so why is this so important here? Well, because things have changed. You see, it used to be years ago that email was hosted within the business. And so you had a firewall, you had antivirus, you had email filtering back everything there locally. And so many companies did a good job of really protecting that. But things changed when more and more people started using cloud storage for their mail, whether it's Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo. They started using free mail for businesses, and they started moving to other platforms like Google Workspace, Microsoft, they're storing their data in the cloud. And so now it moves outside of the protective boundaries of your physical business, and they're accessing email everywhere. They're accessing on their mobile devices. They're away from home. They're in coffee shops, airplanes, traveling, or wherever they might be. They are looking for ways to access their email. And so it's more than just email going. It's other ways, other applications. And many times they're logging in with their email. And we all like that because it makes it more productive when we can access our data anywhere we want. But guess what? It also makes it a little easier for cyber criminals to attack. And so what do they begin to do? Well, they realize that email is a vector. So they can craft a phishing email that will entice you to click on something. And the reality is these emails are getting a little harder and harder to recognize. They use social engineering. Why? During this time, they know people are just busy. We're trying to be productive during this pandemic. And so cyber criminals have studied human behavior. They're doing what they can in order to hack the human. And so what we want to do is help you to just see how the threat landscape has changed. And so something you have to look at is, in order to protect the business, well, you need to know where the data is. You need to know where the data lies. And so think about what you have in your emails. What are some of the things that you might think people will send in emails? Have you ever noticed that sometimes, even if it's healthcare, that individuals might send their date of birth, social security number. Sometimes individuals will even communicate credit card numbers. Now, this is all sensitive information that's being sent. Can you have control over that? Now, there's something, maybe, let me know if you've heard of this in regards to your email. It just in regards to data, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you're going to protect your data, then is there a way to keep it confidential? Now, let me ask you this. If your mail is being stored, business data and confidential information, such as credit card numbers, hopefully that should not be transmitted over email. PCI goes against that. But what if you want to communicate with the doctor? Now, if you initiate that, well, that's you. But what if the doctor initiates it and they're sending this sensitive information? Is it protected? Is it confidential? If you're using free mail, would you say your information is confidential? Can you ensure that the integrity stays, that it's not being altered? Can you ensure it's available? Well, we know with most free mail, it's always available, which is why many people rely on it. And so think about that for the moment. Have you heard of that? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And why do you feel that that is important for businesses? Can you think of some reasons why that would be important for businesses? Because what if your data was altered? What if sensitive information was altered? How would you feel about that? Let's get a comment.
Well, I think that that's important because it's a business reputation that's on the line. So if you're known as a business that cares for people's information, whether it be patients or customers, then it just gives us as buyers or as patients a little bit more confidence that at least the business is taking the necessary measures in order to protect your personal information, your sensitive information.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had in the comments says that one I would be upset that their info was compromised. And the reality is that in many of these data breaches, that's what's happening with these enterprise companies. There's notices that are going out. There's, whether it's on the website or you're being notified publicly, well, we had a breach and this is what was compromised, and we can get you credit monitoring. The problem is, does credit monitoring change the fact that our information is already out there? It doesn't change that. And so we have to adjust how we protect the information, no matter what business we're in. If we're in business, it's our responsibility to protect all of that sensitive information of our consumers or even our vendors. and we protect our reputation. But what if you had the ability, as this slide showing, where you can now control and protect the data, prevent if it's shared, or restrict copying and saving the information? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Because that's really what we want to see. Of course, there's nothing that's foolproof 100%, but what we're going to see is how do we minimize the risk, and then we'll address one of the questions that came in. Well, does antivirus protect your email? We're going to address that. Now think about, you can see this. What do you think? We see a map here. And what do you think that represents, since we're talking about email? What you see here, these are different places for one email account in which attempts were made to log in to a particular email account. Now this particular client is in the United States. And as you can see, different areas. Now there's no way that this user is able to travel to all these places within the month. And many of these were happening within the last 7 days. Now, how would you feel if you were able to see that someone was logging into your email account from all these different locations, whether they were successful or just attempts? Would that concern you? Terrified? Yes, that would be concerning. Now, let me ask you, with your current email solution, are you able to see who's logging into your accounts? Are you able to see if any of them have been successful? Let's get a little more visibility, because this is just showing places on the map. Now let's take a look at this. Now here is data extracted from one of our clients, just attempts. Now they're using Office. This one's using Office 365. And so we made sure that we took out any usernames, but these are all the different places. Now it's failures. And you start seeing there's Russia, India, Brazil. There's all different places throughout the world. Now here's the thing. So as you look here, these are not connections over browser. These are insecure ways of logging in, and many free email providers won't let you know who's logging in via those connections. So someone could be logging in via an app such as Outlook or a mail app or some way, and you wouldn't know it. Some may give you that ability to find out, but these are attempts. Let's take a look at another one. Here we are with more, and you start seeing they're all failures there. And thankfully, these particular failures were because of not having the right to username or password. Now the other ones, as you can see, some of these attempts, such as this one, is because it was from an address that was malicious. Some of them were incorrect username or password. As you can begin to see, the account was locked out. So a lot of different things. So it gives you some visibility as to what's happening with the identity, especially since that identity is connected to other things. Think of what you use your email for. You may use it to log into apps and things of that sort. But let's banking, we log into bank. So we may use our email for many different things, business apps, we log into other things. But how could someone get into your mail without you knowing? That's a good question. Well, you might think, well, they'd have to have a username and password. But take a look at something here. I'm going to pull up our next slide. Because what we want you to see is something let's pull up our slide here. Something interesting in regards to your connections here. Now take a look at here. Now this is with a Microsoft account, and as you look at, these are two different locations. As you can see, they're within the same time frame, 2-3 hours, and they're within the same location. Now a question came in: do people have your info, such as passwords, to log in, or are they using random information? Well, it's both. And that's why we're looking at this next image. It is because these recent activities, Microsoft will let you know when there were some login attempts on your via the portal. Now these were in two different locations. And you might wonder, how is that possible? Well, one way has to do with your login session. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show you a little clip, because sometimes those videos just go a lot easier when doing demos and we don't mess up live. So let me just show you this clip here, because it'll be helpful into you seeing how one can log in and get by this. So hopefully you can see that there. And so here we are. We're going to just play this. Now this is an Office account. And so what's being used there's as you can see, it's called Sharp Chromium. Now this is a tool that will allow someone to steal the cookies from a particular session. Now, as you can see, not logging in, the user's logging in. And what's nice about this particular account is they're using two-factor authentication. And so they receive a push within the account, and then they log in. But now they have an opportunity. Well, you know what? I use this device often, so let me check the box. And now we're just going to add a cookie in, and I want to stay signed in. So now that changes the cookie as well. And you may experience this when you log in, because you go into your account and your session is still there, and you don't have to put in your password anymore, because it's keeping you signed in. That's what the cookie is for. And so now you're there in your account. Now with this tool, this Sharp Chromium, as you can see, there were no cookies before, but now as they run it, now it starts pulling in the cookies, the data that now the computer helps you to see, you know what, I've logged in. This is the information we received back. This is what's going to keep our session active and live. Now, what is it doing? Since they've already captured it, this tool has captured that cookie from your computer. And now they're moving. This is simulating an attacker on your computer, and now taking that information to another computer, another location, and they're going to import that within the browser. As you can see, it's importing the cookies, and now signing into another location. Watch what happens. There was no login or anything. Just pulls up the mail. So what does that tell you? One, you don't have to have, one doesn't have to have your password in order to log in. However, an attacker would have to be on your computer. They would have to have access to your computer. So yes, that is crazy. But so how could an attacker get access to your computer? So the question was brought out, is it better to just log out? Well, that is a good question. And so what we have are some tips coming up, because that is really what we want to consider. Let's adjust that share there. So here we have, this is the case. So and it simulates it's coming from the same IP address and everything, because it pulls all that session data, and now they're able to use that somewhere else. And so that's what they call session hijacking. Now, how could someone get that? Well, there's a number of ways. One, Google. This is just something here. Google talks about cookies, and you'll be able to see here that normally these will last up to 6 months. Up to 6 months. Yeah. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Is it better to just log out? What we're going to do is look at some real data and just help you to see what is happening. So I'm going to adjust my share here. Now, perhaps you've learned that Texas requires certain businesses that experience a data breach of system security to notify consumers and to provide a notice of that data breach to the Office of the Texas Attorney General. So that's important, because if the breach affects 250 more Texans. And so this went into effect September 1st, 2021. And so what we wanted to just focus on is some of the things that are happening just in regards to email. So here, as you can see, there's the data breach submission, and they also make this public. And so these are some of the breach reports. And so you begin to see some of the things that are happening and the number of breaches that are coming up. And there's some of these that are quite interesting. As you start to look at some of these breaches, what it entails. And as you can see, we're going to look for one that I found on this list earlier, such as the Menninger Clinic here in Houston, Texas. Now, as you can see, that some of the information that was affected, we have the name of the individual, the address, social security number, and things of that sort. Financial information, could be account number, debit, credit card number, not exactly sure. Medical information, and they needed to provide a notice. So just with some searching, we're able to pull up what they have on their website. And this is what it says. March 30th, 2021, Menninger discovered unusual activity relating to one employee email account. So as you can see, it involved email. One account was affected that gave them access, is from what they found out. Now it says Menninger immediately took steps to investigate the activity and to secure its email environment. So through one email account, all of this information was being stored. So makes you wonder what data is being stored within the environment, which is why many in healthcare, they have EHR software application in which that data is being stored and sent, then it doesn't have to be sent out via email. But either way, all this is being stored within email, many businesses. And so as a result of that one account, we can see all that what was affected. And this was over 1,278. That's just from one account, from what they're saying. Did that one account now lead them? What else was accessed? So we have a question: are companies required to tell the consumer what information was breached? Well, that's what they're doing by means of this, where they're telling you, they said that they have learned of a data security incident that may have impacted personal information belonging to certain employees and patients. And so if you were involved in one, you would get a notification such as this there. And in the following, it mentions some of the things involved: social security numbers, driver's license, other identification numbers, credit card and banking numbers, which is interesting for a company that size. And so we gather some of those information, but none of that is stored because PCI requires that some of that information not be stored in an unencrypted way. So much of that information was out, and so we have no access. Once someone puts in their credit card for payment, we can't see it. Tokenization happens. We never know. So what can you do? There's not much you can do once they have your data. It's healthcare. And so many of them, you give them information that's required for them to take care of your needs. So that was one of them. Now here's another one. There was Austin, this another company, Meador and Jones. Now, didn't know what this business was, but turns out, well, they are accountants. And so what was found with this one? Well, same thing, same information. And so on their, looked up their website, and they go on to mention, we found a download from them of this incident that was sent out. Now, this is what it said. It says that your information may have been impacted. Well, but then it says, we want to assure you that we are taking steps to reduce the likelihood of this kind of event from happening in the future. Since the incident, we have all affected email passwords have been changed, and multi-factor authentication was implemented for access to all email accounts within our environment. So what do we learn from this? Here we have this particular accounting firm, and they had email. But guess what according to this, what they may not have been doing. Now, this isn't calling out any particular company. All these companies are here, they're listed. And as you search on the internet, you can find many of their notices, whether it's on their website, it's downloadable in PDFs. Now, they're saying that maybe not all of their email accounts had multi-factor authentication. Which means that someone could have just logged into their accounts with a username and password, and no one would have known because it would have been legitimate. Now, what were they using the same passwords in other places, and that's what made it easier? Was it the result of a phishing email that they were able to get their credentials? We don't know, but all the affected accounts, it says they had their passwords changed and multi-factor authentication was implemented. So if they didn't have multi-factor authentication before, then we see that now they were able to do that. So something we can learn from this. And there's certainly others. There was another account, and that was the result of a phishing email, the Professional Dental Association, and they actually have an account on their webpage, their notice of their data breach. And they recently noticed a few email accounts of its vendor contained some limited patient information and was accessed by an unauthorized person between March 31st and April 1st as a result of a phishing incident. So, as we learned earlier, threat actors are looking for ways to compromise. And so what they're doing is trying to find anyone who's going to click. And once they do, they have access. If they have access to your email, just from what we can see, what we've seen on these sites, not all of these were the result of email. So we just did searching on some of them just to see what was publicly available. And as you can tell, some of these, they were going to be posted on websites, or it was available publicly and not sent out via mail. And so the ones that were public, whether it's on their website or something, those are the ones we searched just to see what happened. Because there's always a lesson that we can learn from. So the question came up then, well, what do we do? What can we do? Well, here's, let's go back to our slideshow. So here we have some of these breaches. That's what did you think of that? And many states have those notifications like that, where it's required. It's quite interesting, isn't it? So what can you do? So here is one of the questions was, can you install? Should you install antivirus? Yes, you should. Absolutely. Because if emails are going to be the way in, then one, you have to begin looking at how do you secure the email. And so some of that, and this is just talking about first the cookie stealing, is you want to stop them from even getting onto your computer in the first place. And so that may be the result of antivirus, something in the browser, because websites get affected. If someone can infect the website, then they can put a malicious link on there. What's the second step? One, don't click on anything that looks suspicious, whether it's on a web page or in an email. Avoid storing sensitive data and clear out your cookies. And some of that you'll be able to do with going into your browsers, and like Chrome and access history, clearing browser history. So you can do things of that sort. So what is an example of a suspicious link? I'll show you an example of that in just in a bit here. And this is why it's also so important, because an attacker only needs one time. That we were on a webinar with one of our vendors, and there's this one particular one. As you can see in the background, it shows the store of one where threat actors will compromise. That's all they need is once. And that's all they do is steal cookie sessions, and they sell them. But what's interesting is what it says here. It says on Genesis, criminals don't just buy one cookie. They buy exclusive access to a bot, a compromised computer that is part of a botnet, which could contain any number of login credentials. But more importantly, Genesis also lets customers essentially recreate a one-to-one replica of that victim's browser with their cookies and device fingerprints intact. That's what is scary. So there are some things that can be done. One, clearing out that browser history so that those sessions can be ended. We saw just where Google said they're left up that active for up to 6 months. And that's similar with others. So being able to log out of every session, there might be some things to do. And so what might they do to get your attention? Well, we talked earlier about phishing emails. Now this is one, it's not particularly a phishing email. Well, it is a phishing email, but there's no links in there. This is a particular one they want you to do something. This is a Windows Defender order. Microsoft wouldn't send out anything via Gmail about your subscription. Now you may have a cloud service provider. Hopefully they're not using Gmail. They'd be using their Microsoft accounts. But either way, it says that you've just been charged for Microsoft Defender. Windows comes with Defender. There are other versions that you can purchase, but it certainly wouldn't be like this. So what do they want you to do? They've just charged you $399. You have a choice. Will you call? And if you call, what information will they try to get out of you? In order to verify that it's you, might they call and get your name, get your address, ask for what's the credit card number that was used? Might they try to use social engineering to get that information from you? And in your efforts to save the money, you might actually be giving it away. So that happens. They use social engineering, email to get your attention. Here's another one, suspicious link. Here's one that was sent in. Actually, you can see that just came in a couple of days ago, where suspicious link, you have a voicemail. Don't know who is Alice, who knows, but it came from that account up there. And when you hover over the link, we know we've been taught, hover over the link to see where it goes. And that's where it goes here. That's where the link goes. It's what it looks like, but then it essentially goes here to this link here. Now, where does that take one? Well, let me show you where that next goes. That now goes to this link. Let me get back to my slideshow. I had a slide out of order. So here we go. So where does it next go? Take a look here. That takes you to that suspicious link. Now takes one to this phishing site. But now, did you notice something here? You see here where it says that username? Now this right at the end will include whatever username, email address that you're using. And so that number, that's changeable. And you'll see here in a minute. Now that's where it is. It takes you to that particular site. And then here's another one using a different, that's user@company.com, user at company name, and that page changes. So that was what a suspicious link to do. The purpose is to capture your credentials. Now we tested this with a phishing email. We put it in a sandbox, we clicked on the link, just typed in a password and things of that sort. And it did not take but a few minutes, and already someone started attempting to log in. And it's true, we had a comment, that They make it look just like a Microsoft account, and they do this with any. Make it look like a Hotmail, a Gmail, a Yahoo, whatever you use, they'll adjust. And their goal, as we see here, their goal is to trick you, to attempt to trick you or someone that you work with, either to give out information or to click on a link. And what they're also doing is using email. They're compromising the email of someone that you've done business with, that you've communicated with. It just says that we had a call, just one of our clients received a phishing email that actually had malware. Now, what we do at times when we receive them, we will call up the companies because they don't always know that they've been compromised. So we call this particular business up. They were actually a law firm, and call and ask to speak with the user whose email account was used, and they wanted to know why do you want to speak with them? And we told them, well, this is what was received. And then they came back and says, do not open that email. My email was hacked. They said, well, we know. But have you already taken steps to fix that? Some have said yes, some have not. And what has been good is that many that we've spoken to, they've taken steps later on to do something about it. They didn't go through us, we offered, but as long as they did something. There was a particular real estate company we called, and they have offices all throughout the United States. And so we give them a call and speak to one of the users, and they says, oh no, this isn't, the boss is not going to pay for that. It's too much money. What can I do for myself? And then the user says, no, that's too much money. So I'm going to see what the boss does. Well, about a few weeks later, we checked on them again, and they had implemented email security for everyone. And so it was easy to identify and see that. So pay attention to the emails. It's all it takes is one click. They can steal a cookie. They may use a trusted email, meaning that they possibly compromise someone that you know. Maybe they followed an email thread, and now they put in a link because you were expecting it. And because you've already had that, now they will abuse that relationship and cause you to click on a link. It may actually take you where you want to go, but it does something on the back end. Maybe it's stealing your cookie session. Maybe it's leaving malicious software on your computer or in memory where antivirus may not realize it. And so we got to talk also about these real world scenarios where an employee receives a fraudulent email. And as a result, someone got access to it. We saw that on the data breach, a submission report with the Attorney General. And some where we saw where they've had to change their passwords, implement two-factor authentication. And so what's the impact of some of these? Well, just having their business listed, their reputation. Some may wonder, do I really want to do business there again? The data has already been compromised. The beauty is at least we know they're taking steps to better secure their business. And you have to give kudos to them because, one, they publicly went out there and submitted it. Not every business does that, even though it's the law. So it's good that they did what was right. but it still has an impact to you and me, you and I, because now if we don't keep up with our information, could an attacker use that information against us? That's possible. So some tips to walk away with. One, you use two-factor authentication. That's what we learned one of the companies had to do. And that can be time-based authentication, where you get a code that's within an application such as Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. Many are using these magic links. And if you have these backup codes, one, you want to save them and put them up somewhere, because someone, if they had access to them, well, they can get into your account as well. And so why do you want to use them? Well, because now you have your username, which may very well be your email address. You have your password, and now you have to verify. Maybe it's a push notification. Maybe it's the code that changes every 30 seconds. And that many times could slow an attacker down. Implement email security. Because many times, if you have the right email security, it'll start filtering out those emails, catching them, putting them in quarantine so you can verify, maybe even contacting whoever sent it if you know them. And if you begin implementing the proper security, well, you increase your chances of using email securely. Freemail implements many of these things, but what we learned earlier is we want to make sure, can we keep our email confidential? Can we make sure that we have the integrity intact? It's not changed. Someone didn't log in and change something, now abusing the relationship. That's something we want to keep in mind with social engineering. There's much that you can do to not be among the 90-something% that are being, attackers are using email. It's about 91 to 96% of attacks are happening through email. And over 80 of them contain malicious attachments. They're using social engineering. So times have changed. Or will you do your best to secure your email?